welcome to Holistic Happy Hour. Today's topic is all about emotion, sensitivity, being empathetic, and choosing love. My name is Kimberly Marsh. I'm an astrologer here in St. Augustine Beach, Florida, and I'm going to go ahead and start with the astrology of the season, the astro energy that's happening this week. Really, we're entering Cancer season. We're going from Gemini, which is very mental, to very feely Cancer energy. And this whole year, 2020, is really a Cancer year because there's so much energy happening in this sign. We actually began 2020 with a lunar eclipse in Cancer. That was on January 10th. And we end this year with a full moon in Cancer, and that's December 29th. Right now, this Cancer energy is being activated again. Yesterday was Thursday, June 18th, and we had Mercury go retrograde yesterday. So we are in Mercury retrograde season. It retrograded in Cancer. So there's that Cancer sign again. Many of you know, but I'll just throw this out there for you that are newer to astrology. Mercury retrograde is a time when you want to pause from any major purchases. It affects electronics, travel, communications. And in this sign of Cancer, I have a strong feeling it's going to be affecting home life and families, but we'll get to that in a moment. Back to more of what's happening in this Cancer energy. Summer solstice, that occurs when the sun reaches 0 degrees Cancer, and that happens on June 20th at 5:44 p.m. Eastern Time and 2:44 p.m. Pacific Time. And shortly after the summer solstice, which again, that's when these times we're having this solstice time, these eclipses. Again, we're in the middle of 3 eclipses. This is the second eclipse in the middle of 3 that we're having right in a row. These are tense times, and they will zap the energy out of you. So don't push too hard during these times. So again, I was saying that we're having this solar eclipse in Cancer on the same day, Sunday, West Coast time. It's exact at 11:41 p.m. So a solar eclipse is a new moon, okay? But it just happens to be more powerful because it's an eclipse. And then it occurs the next day at 2:41 a.m. Eastern time. This is the first of 2 new moons in Cancer this year. So this year we're actually having 2 new moons in the same sign. And the second one that we're having is on July 20th. Now between these two new moons in Cancer, so there's just so much, again, Cancer energy. There's a lunar eclipse, and that's happening in Capricorn. That's at 13 degrees Capricorn. This is very significant because there's 2 things very significant happening right now. One is the Mercury retrograde at 14 degrees Cancer, and the other one is this coming eclipse that's going to be at 13 degrees Capricorn. This is important because if we look at the natal chart of the United States, we'll find that the sun, the natal sun of the United States, is at 13 degrees Cancer. Okay, so we're having Mercury retrograding over the sun of the US, and then just 2 weeks later, we're having this lunar eclipse, which is opposing the sun of the United States. Now, eclipses are fascinating because they repeat every 19 years. These are activators. Eclipses are activators, and you can look back 19 years ago and say, what happened? And look back another 19 years. I actually, the nerdy astrologer that I am, I went through, all the way back to like the 1600s, and it's fascinating. So 19 years ago was when 9/11 happened. 19 years before that is when we had the AIDS epidemic coming up, revealing itself to us, and then also the recession began in the 80s that time. So we're sort of, in that sort of cycle again. With, I was talking earlier about Cancer rules home, it rules women, it rules families. I really feel like this retrograde and this eclipse is a return to home, and really for the whole country. And we talked about it last time about the numbers are going up, and they just keep going up and up and up. And it's challenging because what we're dealing with is an invisible. You don't see it until after you're affected by the virus. But don't push too hard. I really feel like we're going to be ending up back home, and I know a lot of people are already home. They haven't even really left yet. And I'm not sure that the governments will actually be shutting it down this time and enforcing these orders. I think it'll be more on the local level, your local probably city, maybe state, but I'm not sure about that either. Now, back to emotions and sensitivity. Cancer is the crab. It's sensitive. It rules emotions. And it's important that we talk about empathy with these emotions and that we remember to take time and space to decipher if we are experiencing our own emotions or are we absorbing what's going on around us. And honestly, it's probably a little bit of both right now. So we really need to pause before we act or react, and decide, is what we're taking in, is it love? Because we have a choice. We don't have to take it in. We have that ability to choose. And if it's not, maybe disconnect from that source. We talked a little bit about that last week with detox and, connecting from toxic situations in our lives. So again, really asking yourself that question, and then take the time and choose, is what I'm about to put out love? Because our biggest tool that we have at this time is to spread love. That is our biggest tool. And it's so challenging right now because everything is so tense and it seems like everything and everyone's at odds. There's such a division, and it's not that there's not a place for anger, but how can we still have that passion and spread that message, or whatever it is we're passionate about that we want to bring change about, and do that in a way that's loving. So this Cancer energy is a time for retreating to the safety of our shells. Self-care is huge right now. Last week, again, like I said, we focused on detox. Now we're focusing on soothing ourselves, loving ourselves. And we cannot give what we do not have. So it's getting back to that self-love so that we have more to give. This Cancerian energy, it's a timeout. It's really an opportunity for us to slow down, to go inward and nourish our souls. And I know some people will say, what do you mean slow down? But think about it. Doesn't it seem, even though we might have slowed down, doesn't it seem like everything is hectic all over again? So really it's about going within. And we really need this time and space to go within, and soothe ourselves ahead of Mars's 6-month transit into Aries, which is on June 27th, which things are going to get crazy again during that time. And Mars usually spends about 6 weeks in a sign, and in this year we're getting 6 months in Aries, which is its home sign, and it's all about passion. So it's good before we get into that energy that our passion's coming from a place of love, not anger, so we can direct it properly. Anyway, more on that next week, and be well, everyone. Thank you so much. Next up, we have Carrie Berkey.
Hi, Carrie Berkey here. I'm the author of the Free Spirit Guidebook. And after listening to Kimberly talk, I was thinking about a lot of the lessons in here kind of come out of coping from times when you are feeling overly emotional. So one thing I like to do, she mentioned pausing, and is the biggest gift we can give to ourselves when we are about to react. So 2 ways I like to pause that we're going to do together is, first it's breathing, and then I'm going to light some Palo Santo, and we'll try to clear our space collectively with some smoke. But for you, just sit up tall. You're going to close your eyes, and I want you to do some cleansing breaths first. So you're going to inhale deeply through your nose, and you're going to exhale out of your mouth. So you're going to do that at your own pace. And what I want you to think about here is, a lot of times we act like a sponge when it comes to other people's energy that we're bringing in. And this can help you think about how you can act more like a screen. So you are going to take things in like your inhale, but know that you have the power to let them leave you on the exhale. So if you could even do this in your regular life, like, are you experiencing hate, negativity, like what's being sent to you? And you can see it coming in on the inhale, and then you can imagine that you're letting go of it on the exhale. Okay, so then I just want you to take some nice deep breaths, breathing only through your nose. And since we're focusing on choosing love, maybe you imagine the word love coming in your body as you inhale. And this time you're exhaling just out of your nose. It's not as much of a let go. Maybe imagine the word love moving all throughout your body. Again, with that kind of conscious intention that you're choosing love. So usually just after taking some deep breaths, you'll feel different. That's a nice gift to yourself. So when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So I just have a little smoke. So if you are watching this and you have the ability to light some sage or something, so you might just want to move it around your body, around the space you live in, and just take that as a moment to yourself to separate you from everything that's coming at you and just to give yourself that moment to yourself. So I think that's important too, is to slow down. And then another part of that reacting part, though, especially if we're talking about Cancer season, where you do want to be retreated a little bit, is gift yourself having tools. So right now we're talking about, like, a lot of what you're seeing online is protests, activism, people trying to become active anti-racist. So something you can do for yourself is, if you're finding useful tools, books, articles, people that are sharing, either like in the notes section on your phone or maybe on the bookmarks tab on your computer, create a list. And that way, when you are talking to people, whether, you know, on the phone or social media or over email, and you're finding that you want to react potentially with a little bit of anger, that you can instead find one of these resources and share it with love. You might need to pause and do that breathing before you share. And then another thing to do is, if you are feeling a lot of reactionary tendencies, is to also have a note section and potentially a bookmark that are like more like gifts to yourself, things that help you tune in. So suggestions would be like favorite meditation. Maybe there's like a yoga or exercise routine that you can start to learn to catch yourself, that you're like, oh my gosh, I just feel like maybe yelling at everybody, or I just feeling upset, or that you're going on to just absorb more people's stuff. Like you find that you keep going on your phone or computer to just absorb everybody else's stuff. And you can use this as a way to go, oh wait, I'm going to go to this tab and click here and pick something. And something that's nice too is maybe to have a link to like your astrological profile, something that kind of tunes you back into your strengths and maybe even your tendencies, and know, oh yeah, I tend to be like this, and it's okay, and not to beat yourself up over it. And so to gift yourselves that, so you can kind of come back from a place of love. So I hope that helps you kind of deal with being empathetic and a lot of the emotions that are coming up. And the other thing I wanted to tie into that is that, you know, you can watch, you're watching this video 3 years from now, that it can be anything that you're trying to teach people about. Maybe it's changes in education. Maybe it's educating people about breast cancer. You know, maybe it's about educating them about the work you do. So just to have these resources so you can share easily, and it'll kind of keep your energetic space a little clear, and you can feel like you're sharing from a space of love. Okay, so enjoy. And next up is Paula.
Thank you, Carrie. That was great. I actually felt a shift that was much needed. So one of the things that can happen when people's emotions are high is that conversations can go badly. People tend to misunderstand each other or misperceive each other. So I wanted to talk about some tips that I give you in my book. This is one of my favorite books that I've written. It's called Saying the Right Thing When You Don't Know What to Say. And saying the right thing can be really tough at a time like this when emotions are running high. There are 5 components that are really important and essential to having a successful, difficult conversation. So when I say difficult, that can either be because emotions are high, or because what has to be said is not particularly easy or pleasant. You know, there are many reasons why we end up having to have difficult conversations. Sometimes someone is grieving, or they've suffered some other kind of loss, a breakup, or financial issues or problems. So here are the 5 things that if you include these in a conversation, it's definitely going to go better. Actually, any conversation, but particularly a difficult one. So the first thing is set an intention. Set the right intention, because quantum physics has proven that energy shows up in accordance with the expectation of the observer. So set an intention. My intention is that this conversation will create understanding, or will clear any misunderstandings or blocks between us. Set that intention before you have the conversation. The next component, be present. When you're talking about something that's difficult, or someone else is expressing their feelings, you can't be running the grocery list or what happened last night or what you have to do next. You need to be right there in the moment, being present, because energetically that makes a huge difference. The other person will feel it if you're present, and they will feel it if you're not present. The third component, come from being comforting and supportive without judgment or feeling like you need to teach something. We just want to listen. We want to understand. We want to allow the other person the chance to speak, because when we speak, we are processing. And it's very important in any human interaction that the other person feels seen, heard, and understood. So if we come from support and comfort rather than judgment or lecturing, or a tone that implies I'm here and you're there in a superior or condescending way, that doesn't usually help the conversation go better. The most important thing you can do in any conversation, especially a difficult one, is listen. To listen is way more important than to speak. Whatever you have to say will not serve the overall goal of the conversation nearly as much as it will if you truly listen. Because when there's deep listening going on, there's deep understanding. And the other person can feel that. Again, there's an energetic dynamic that's created that's very helpful to the conversation. And finally, when it is your turn to speak, then respond briefly from the heart, not the head. When another person is in an emotional state, or if they're in pain, what they really need is to connect to your humanity, not your database. So respond from the heart in a loving manner. And I guarantee you that conversation will go much better. And so in these times that Kimberly described, when emotions are running high, we want to use these 5 steps: set intention, be present, comfort and support rather than judge or teach, listen, and respond from the heart and not the head. All right, next up, speaking of the heart, Deep, please give us what you have to share today.
Thank you, Paula. Namaste, everyone. Welcome you today. So today we'll talk about first the importance of empathy, and second we'll lead into the meditation to experience empathy and love. So it's like 3 months ago, before the protests, before the virus, before things were taken from us, everyone lived in their own separate bubbles. There was a study I think I read about 2 years ago that said the lack of empathy, especially among youths. It seems like we're so connected, like through technology. We're living in a really interesting and wonderful time where we have the world in our hands. Yet when it comes to being social, people are lacking the ability to talk and communicate with people in person. So, and there is a separation, like from the news to people to politics. It's like everyone wants to be in separate corners and not try to understand the oneness that lies within us. Um, so if uh, so empathy is that emotion that connects us with the world around us. And once we feel the connection with others, we make the decisions with empathy and compassion, and hence we can create a kinder and healthier world. So it's important to understand what the other person is going through. But it's like the 7 different chakras, 7 different blockages, we all have our own different issues. And like Paula said, it's important to be an observer and listen, and without reacting with your own emotions that comes up. So keeping that in mind, please begin to close your eyes, and we'll just go through this meditation. So just close your eyes and slowly begin to focus on your breath, and just be mindful of everything that's happening around you at this moment. So as you begin to inhale, start feeling the connection with what surrounds you. Take a moment to experience what others are going through. Be it a disease, be it a fight for equal rights, be it a loss, be it anything and everything that's going around. You could just pick one, just observe, listen, and experience. Again, remember not to include your emotions into the mixture. So what you're feeling at this moment is a development of empathy within the heart. Continue to focus on your breath and begin to take this a little bit further. Where there are problems, there are solutions. So if there's a solution that you can come up with to help ease other people's suffering, begin to develop and focus on that solution. It's easier to get lost in the emotion, but when you find the solution that works for it, it's much easier. It's harder, but yet it helps others. Now, as you begin to inhale love and compassion. And as you begin to exhale, share this feeling with others. With every exhale, just remember to breathe in, breathe out love, and breathe out compassion. And now, as you slowly begin to inhale, you could begin to open up your eyes. And just remember to continue to share this feeling on a day-to-day basis as well. So finally, first you experience, then you feel, then you develop, and then you share. I mean, any situations that can work out that way. And if everyone had empathy and compassion for each other around the world, I think we definitely live in a better world. And it's important to have the connection with not just humans, it's the plants, the animals, and the entire world itself. So thank you again. Namaste.
Thank you, Deep. Thank you, everyone, for joining and sharing today. I feel like I'm floating in a great big love bubble. Feel awesome. So for more, if you'd like to connect with any of our practitioners, please go to holistichappyhour.org. See you next week.